The movie opens with Mason, a former Marine who misses the action-packed days when his life had meaning. Now he's stuck working a dull 9-to-5 job as a lawyer, handling petty phone fraud cases that even a child could solve. His marriage is falling apart. His wife can barely hide her resentment, and the only bright spot in his life is his daughter, Chase, whom he adores. He spends his free time teaching her self-defense, using the combat skills he learned in the military. Years ago, Mason gave up his dream career to serve his country, but now he's left with nothing but memories stored away in a box he often wishes he could revisit. One afternoon at the office, an unexpected visit from an old friend, Sebastian, shakes up his routine. Sebastian takes Mason to an airbase buzzing with soldiers and high-tech equipment, instantly reigniting the spark he thought he'd lost. As they reminisce about their time in the service, Sebastian offers Mason a job as a personal bodyguard. It's supposedly an easy gig, nothing Mason can't handle, and the pay is a tempting $2,000. He gives Mason a day to think it over. Returning home to his mundane life, Mason can't shake the feeling that this job might be the fresh start he's been craving. However, he's unsure how to break the news to his wife without setting her off. Unfortunately, his decision is made for him when, that same night, his wife tells him she's tired of living with a man who's lost all his drive and passion. She asks for a divorce, leaving Mason shattered. With nothing left to lose, he accepts Sebastian's offer without telling her. The next morning, Mason meets his new client, Claire, a fearless journalist known for her daring stories. His assignment is to protect her as she travels to Paldonia for an exclusive interview with the country's controversial leader, President Venegas. The name strikes a nerve with Mason. Years earlier, his final mission as a Marine was to assassinate Venegas, a mission that not only failed but cost the lives of half his team. Now he must escort Claire right into the lion's den. Upon arriving in Paldonia, it quickly becomes clear that Venegas is no ordinary dictator. Charismatic and self-assured, he takes every opportunity to flirt with Claire, though his childish arrogance hides a keen intelligence. He seems to know an unsettling amount about both Claire and Mason, making it clear that underestimating him would be a fatal mistake. As the presidential caravan winds through the city, the streets are filled with orchestrated scenes of public support. But it doesn't take long to notice that some citizens aren't afraid to show their true feelings of discontent. While en route to the presidential ranch, the convoy reaches a bridge where a suspicious roadblock appears. Before anyone can react, the lead vehicle is ambushed, and a violent shootout erupts. Claire, panicked, begs Mason to protect her, but years away from combat have left him frozen in fear. For a tense moment, he is paralyzed, unable to process the chaos around him. Finally, snapping back to reality, Mason takes control of the SUV and manages to fight off the attackers. Once the immediate threat is neutralized, he realizes their vehicles are destroyed, forcing them to escape on foot through the dense jungle. Mason's only objective is to reach the airport and get out of Paldonia as quickly as possible. Claire, ever the journalist, is tempted to chase the bigger story, but eventually agrees to leave. With no other option, Venegas joins them as they retreat from the danger zone. Using his satellite phone, Mason contacts Sebastian, who pinpoints their location via GPS and promises to coordinate a helicopter extraction. Meanwhile, Venegas secretly calls his nephew Jorge, who is already preparing to declare himself the new president of Paldonia. It becomes chillingly clear that Jorge was the mastermind behind the attack. Despite the urgency, Venegas quickly senses that Jorge is hiding something. Suspicious, he cuts the call short before his location can be traced. Realizing the stakes are higher than anyone imagined, he asks Mason and Claire to help him reach the capital and reclaim control. But Mason, unwilling to risk any more lives, refuses, and leaves Venegas behind in the heart of the jungle. A few hours later, they arrive at the location Sebastian mentioned, but everything shifts when they realize the helicopter is a combat chopper, and several armed soldiers step out. Sensing danger, Mason bolts into the jungle while the helicopter gives chase, opening fire. After several tense minutes of weaving through the dense forest, they finally lose the soldiers, giving Mason the chance to use the rifle he took from Venegas's caravan. His old skills kick in, and he manages to shoot the pilot, but the helicopter is already hurtling toward him. They scramble to escape, narrowly avoiding being crushed by the crashing aircraft. The chaos sends Claire into a panic, and she gets separated from Mason. Unfortunately, the soldiers track her down, leaving her with no choice but to hide. Just in time, the ex-Marine shows up and takes down the soldiers before they can harm her. However, while he's distracted, the last soldier catches him off guard. In a surprising twist, Venegas appears out of nowhere and shoots the soldier in the back, saving Mason from certain death. Meanwhile, back at the crash site, Jorge arrives with reinforcements, accompanied by Colonel Jan, a key player in this operation who represents American corporate interests in Paldonia. Frustrated by the failure, Jorge faces the colonel's cold, ruthless demeanor. It becomes clear who the real man of action is and who is just a privileged kid out of his depth. Deep in the jungle, Mason and Claire start connecting the dots. It turns out Venegas never actually scheduled an interview. He was told to do it to improve his image at the UN, while using Mason as a scapegoat for the president's assassination. After trekking for hours, Venegas leads them to his hometown, where loyal supporters are willing to help. There, Claire finally gets a candid interview with Venegas, who reveals the truth. For years, he's been fighting not against other governments, but against multinational energy corporations. These companies discovered a rare metal on Paldonian soil that could revolutionize technology, and since Venegas refused to sell it for pennies, they've made him a target. The next morning, Mason takes a risky move. He uses a phone to call Sebastian. Sebastian admits the real plan was to kill Venegas at his ranch, but Jorge got ahead of them. There's still a way to salvage the deal, though. If Mason kills Venegas, the corporations will secure the mineral, and Mason can return home a wealthy man. The call makes it clear. Sebastian picked Mason because he knew Mason wouldn't hesitate to kill the man responsible for half his unit's death years ago. But now, Mason faces an impossible choice. While Mason grapples with this dilemma, Colonel Jan and his forces arrive at the first village. Mason realizes that survival is the immediate priority. With cars out of the question, the group escapes on horseback. Claire struggles to keep up due to her lack of riding experience, and soon, the soldiers close in on her. Mason is forced to decide. Should he kill Venegas and return home to his family? Or should he help Venegas reach the capital and save both Claire and Paldonia? In a shocking reveal, Venegas already knows the truth. He explains that Mason's last mission, the one that killed his friends, was a setup. Explosives had been planted on their helicopter's tail, and the corporations used the threat of war against the U.S. to pressure Venegas into giving up part of his land. Now that they know the land's true value, they want to seize the entire country. When they arrive at a nearby town, Venegas reaches out to old allies, asking for their help in an upcoming exchange with the colonel. Hours later, Mason meets with Colonel Jan to trade Venegas for Claire. Just when it seems the exchange is going smoothly, Venegas pulls off a last-minute surprise. Hundreds of his supporters flood the area, creating a massive uproar that allows the protagonists to escape in the chaos. Using a hidden passage only the president knows about, Mason, Claire, and Venegas make their way to his office. Inside, they find Jorge settling in, already acting like Paldonia's new leader. But he's just a naive kid. When he sees his uncle alive, guilt washes over him. Begging for forgiveness, Jorge pleads with Venegas to give him another chance. Before Venegas can respond, one of Jorge's generals isn't so forgiving. Without warning, he draws his gun and fires. Claire, still live-streaming everything on her phone, captures the moment. The bullet bounces harmlessly off Venegas. His suit is bulletproof. But Jorge isn't so lucky. He falls to the floor, bleeding out in his uncle's arms, apologizing once more before taking his last breath. Moments later, Paldonia's military storms in, aiming their weapons at Venegas. Just when it looks like it's over for him, the colonel's private army bursts through the doors, igniting a massive standoff. Venegas, refusing to back down, rallies his loyal soldiers to turn against the mercenaries, and chaos erupts. Amid the gunfire, Mason, Claire, and Venegas escape through the secret passage, weaving through the palace as the battle rages on. Knowing Venegas and Claire need more time, Mason stays behind to cover their escape. It's not long before he comes face to face with the colonel. Confident in his victory, the colonel brags to Mason, revealing that he was the mastermind behind the ambush that killed Mason's team. Just when it seems like the colonel has the upper hand, Claire sneaks up from behind and delivers a swift blow to his throat, buying Mason the time he needs to finish him off. But the fight isn't over. The mercenaries keep pouring in, and Paldonia's forces are barely holding the line. Exhausted but determined, Mason grabs a nearby gun and prepares for one last stand. When all hope seems lost, Sebastian arrives with reinforcements. Back to back, the old comrades fight side by side, tearing through the mercenaries until the enemy is forced to retreat. Days later, Claire's live stream has spread worldwide, turning public opinion in Venegas's favor. With international support behind him, he secures his position as the rightful leader of Paldonia. Meanwhile, back home, Mason's wife watches the news and sees her husband standing proudly beside a world leader. For the first time in years, she sees the man she fell in love with, a man full of purpose and passion. When Mason returns home, she welcomes him with open arms, grateful for a second chance. Later that evening, Mason receives a bank notification. Curious, he visits an ATM and discovers a $5 million deposit, Venegas' way of thanking him for saving his life. With his confidence restored and his family by his side, Mason finally feels like himself again, ready to enjoy the life he fought so hard to reclaim. Subscribe for more videos like this. Turn on notifications and leave a like to support the channel. Thank you for watching.